Hi everyone, this is Smriti. Welcome to QA automation classes. So today we are starting a new chapter, that is CSS. Okay, so we'll see what exactly is the CSS and what is the main use of the CSS and what exactly is a CSS selectors or the CSS locator and what is the comparison between the XPath as well as the CSS. Okay, so that is the agenda for today's class. So without wasting the time, let's get started. So what exactly is a CSS, right? So when you say CSS is nothing but called as the cascading styling sheet, right? So this cascading styling sheet, right, it is a language that is used to control the appearance and the layout of the web page, and it is used along with the HTML, right? So UI developers, they use this CSS language. Okay, and there are different uses of the CSS, right? So it can be used to styling the HTML element, it can be used to check the page layout or set the page layout, it is used to do the responsive design, there might be some animations on the page, or there are some transition on the page that can also be done with the help of the CSS, right? If user wants to use the custom themes, they want to hide or show some elements, those things can be done with the CSS. So that is a CSS language, right? So we are not learning the CSS language, right? So we are learning about the CSS selector. Okay, so what exactly is the CSS selector, right, or the CSS locator? Okay, so you can say in the UI automation testing frameworks like the Selenium, Cypress, or the Playwright, right, the CSS locator or the CSS selectors, those are used to identify the particular web element on the web page. How we use the XPath to identify the particular web element in the web page, similarly we use the CSS locator or CSS selector to identify and interact with the web element on the web page. Okay, and these locators are part of the CSS language. Okay, so we are using the CSS locators are nothing but the part of the CSS language. So that is the linking between CSS as a language and CSS selectors, right? And these selectors are widely adopted because of their speed, because those are the speed is more as compared to the XPath. Okay, and flexibility and its precision. Okay, and if you come to the CSS locator, so you can say CSS locator is a pattern, right? It is used to select one or more elements on the web page based on their tag, name, ID, class, attribute, position, or hierarchy in the DOM, document object model. Okay, so now you can choose any of these things. Okay, while identifying the particular web element on the UI, you can use either tag name. Okay, so you can use the div or input or span, whatever is there as the tag name, right? We can use that tag name, right? And it will identify the element by using that tag. Okay, so if say there is an input box, right, so you can use the tag input, right, and it will identify that input element. Similarly, if any ID is given for a web element, right, so we can use hash. Okay, so it will refers to the ID. And for if any web element there is a class, then we can use the dot. Okay, and if there are any other attribute, we can specify within the square braces. We can say attribute equals to value. We'll be looking into this in the great detail in the upcoming session, but these are the ways we can use with the CSS. Okay, so like in the XPath, we have a lot of XPath functions and all. Here we can use these things. Okay, and what is the comparison between the XPath and CSS, right? I told we'll go over that. Okay, so that is important to understand. So now if you see, so these two are the web element locating techniques. Okay, so XPath is used to identify the web element on the UI, as well as the CSS is used to identify the web element in the UI. But there are few differences between them, in which case you can go with the XPath, in which case you can go with the CSS selectors. Okay, so after going through this table, you will be clear. Okay, so let's understand first what is the difference. The difference is first direction, right? Direction means how you can traverse the DOM, right? So either you are going from the parent to child, right, or you can go back from the child to parent, or you can go from one node to its sibling nodes, right? So these three way you can traverse the HTML DOM. Okay, so in XPath it supports both the forward and backward traversal. you can go from parent to child, child to parent, and one node to another node, like that you can do. But in CSS you can only go in the forward direction. You cannot come back from a child, you cannot identify child node and then come back to the parent node. That is not possible. Okay. And readability slightly complex in case of XPath, but in case of CSS it is simpler and shorter. Okay. And performance XPaths are slower in some browsers, and CSS it is faster in most of the browsers. Okay. And then the text matching, right? So in XPath we had one text function, right? So using that text function we can match inner text of the web element, right? But that is not possible with the help of the CSS. Okay. And attribute matching, right? So there we have in the XPath we have the contents. Okay. And there we can specify the attribute and the value, right? And contents will take the partial or the entire text. You can match the partial or the entire text, okay, with the attribute. But in the CSS you can have attribute star equals to value, right? So it is a pattern matching. You can do the partial or the whole text you can mention. We'll look into this in great detail when we start with the CSS selectors, right? How to do the pattern matching, starts with, ends with, and anything, right? So that we'll see. And indexing of the element, right? So here the indexing is supported, and it is one based, right, in the XPath. And in case of the CSS also it is nth type of. This also we'll see when we do the CSS selectors. So here also the index are the one based. It's not starting from the 0. Indexes are starting from 1 in case of the XPath as well as in case of the CSS. Okay. And support in tools, XPath is supported in Selenium and Playwright, and CSS selector is supported in Selenium, Cypress, and Playwright. One important point, the Cypress doesn't support the XPath. Okay. So if anyone wants to learn Cypress, you should have a very good understanding of the CSS selectors. Okay. And relative path, the relative path is the strong support for the complex path. Okay. So you can write different types of the path, right? Navigation path from parent to child, right? Lot of there is a strong support for the complex path basically. And this is limited in deeply nested scenarios. Okay. So browser compatibility, it is varies based with the Chrome or Firefox, right? And excellent native browser features are there for the CSS. Okay. So this is basically the difference between the XPath and CSS. Okay. So now if there is a interview questions, what is the difference between the XPath and the CSS selectors, so you can give this difference. Okay. So that's all to this session, guys. If you guys are really enjoying these classes, I'll request you to subscribe to my channel Q Automation Classes and share these videos with your friends and colleagues so that they can also get benefited out of it. And if you have any questions, then please put them in the comment. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Have a good day.